Welcome to another conversation with Convesio. Today we have the one and only. It's Daryl Griffin, the CMO of Convesio. Buddy, how are you today?
Awesome. It's Monday. I'm ready to rock and roll. How about you?
Mate, I am, well, it's actually the end of my day here, and I'm looking forward to Chinese food, which I have to cook for the family after this recording.
I know you like to cook though.
I
I've
know
seen you. I've seen
I'm
you.
kind of mainly thinking about that, to be honest. But before then, I am also thinking about search engine optimization. And I'm also thinking about how scary I find it and what a mountain it is. But with the last year of me collaborating with Convesio, I've got to learn a lot about you, Daryl, and that you are really good at making really complicated things actually quite understandable. So it's great to have you on the show because I believe you're going to help us turn that mountain of SEO into a nice, smoothly gradiented, is that a word? Hill. So before we do that, could you just give us a little bit of your background because you've not always been at Convesio?
Yeah. So a little over 10 years ago, it was interesting. I was at Microsoft working on the Bing team, helping large advertisers to do SEO and SEM, on Bing. And the cool thing back then is that, we were trying desperately to catch up with Google. And so I got to work very closely with the engineers who were building the ranking algorithms for Bing to match and try and catch up with Google's. So I think it was a pretty unique situation because I don't think Google ever did anything like that, right? Where they had, kind of account people matching with technical engineers. And so it was there that I learned kind of exactly how the math works, how they look at new things that may be added to the ranking algorithm.
Yeah.
Because I think that's kind of where it gets fuzzy for a lot of people. You say the word algorithm, and a lot of people just lose it right there.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a big part of my background was just knowing that from the beginning, and then being able to watch as things change with time, and understanding exactly what these engineers have done and found.
So I use Bing on a daily basis. So thank you for all of your hard work. I truly appreciate it. So let's go into SEO then, mate. And let's face it, why should people actually care about SEO?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two reasons really. Um, if you have a website online and you want to get new visitors to your website, you want to get customers for your business, volunteers for your cause, like whatever it is, SEO is going to help you do that because your only other realistic option is to pay a ton of money in advertising to achieve the same goal. So I think when you do SEO well, you're helping to get additional traffic, eyeballs, visitors to your site. In addition, good SEO also helps you convert better. So the more people that come to your site, the more of them are going to buy, join, whatever your success metric may look like.
Absolutely, mate. And one of the things I remember was that when somebody is searching for something, that's buyer intent. So when they do land on your page, if your page is relevant to them, then they are far more likely to make a purchase. That was one of the reasons I was neglecting SEO because I just hadn't made that connection. With regards to search engine optimization in general, what makes you more uniquely placed than maybe some of the experts I could find on YouTube? What's your story?
I mean, yeah, great question. I think, as mentioned, being able to see and learn the actual math behind it, working with the engineers, I got to really understand, how these variables come in, how they're weighted. And so, just as an example, for most sites, the first thing you do is, it's called click through rate, right? So Google's actually measuring, they put out a list of results on whatever query, and they see how much links are getting clicked on. And you would expect the top one is going to get clicked on the most. That's pretty normal. But if they start to see things where the second one ranks higher, it's getting clicked on more, even though it's lower, obviously that one's going to become the new one. So a lot of the math and a lot of the, it starts with the click through rate. Like people have to actually engage, with those rankings. So that's where it all starts.
So I'm terrible at maths, but you kind of made it sound easy. Is everything about making that search result as enticing a click as possible?
That's definitely a good place to start. And so you'll a lot of the YouTube experts will say, you need to have good titles, good descriptions, meta tags, alt tags, all of these different things, schema markup. All of those are great and they definitely help with the first part, which is the enticing part and the click-through rate. So that's the main one, but you kind of hinted at it earlier, and I think So the first part is click through rate. The second part is once they click to that site, what's the experience like? And so, a big one originally was bounce rate. If people were clicking over and they were bouncing back, if you had a bounce rate that was too high, you would get suppressed and you would get dropped down. And the math on that's really simple. They basically give you either a boost to your click through rate if your bounce rate's really low or really positive. If your bounce rate's awful, everyone's coming back, then they may kill you outright, right? Like so they calculate things like bounce rate, and they say if you're better than average, then they'll give you a boost to your click through rate. And if your site is well below average, they'll give you a huge penalty, sometimes up to and just killing it outright. And that's the math. I mean, and so when you think about this stuff, like with SEO, Google can keep adding on these variables and basically set what's the heaven and hell of them, and they can increase or decrease your click through rate, with all of these. And so, as someone who tracks SEO over the years, I've seen like there's a continual adding of these variables. And so that's where I think I can help to maybe simplify and speed that up for people looking to learn more.
So, mate, from what you've said, it actually sounds really complicated and perhaps harder for just your everyday non SEO expert to even rank or even appeal to the algorithm. It sounds a little bit unfair. Could you unpack it a little?
Yeah, I think when you're thinking about, you know, you could say anything you want to be more enticing on your results, right? So, for instance, you could say we're giving away a free mansion, right? Just click here. You have nothing, no obligation on you, right? So you could just flat out lie and just say that this is what you're doing, and that will start to get a lot of clicks and interest, right? So your click through rate will be high. Google will say, okay, let's go for that. But pretty quickly, when it starts to show that your site doesn't really offer those things, right? That people start to get mad about it. That, you know what I mean? Like your bounce rates start going up. So what happens after they've clicked is equally as important as what happens when they click.
Yeah.
And so I think, that whole free mansion thing, you can't have these things. So Google is really what they're doing is they're scanning the site. They're scanning for keywords.
So it's not
But
necessarily unfair, sorry to put in here, which is what I was thinking, because I was assuming people could just game the system. But I think what you're saying is sure, people can try and game the system, but, and I think you're now going to unpack that a bit further. Sorry, that was just for me to
yes,
understand. Keep going.
no, exactly. So that's where Google will definitely, they have a series of audits that they run
Yeah.
in order to ensure that the site has what it says it has, right?
Hmm.
That it is relevant for what the user was searching for.
Yeah.
So every time Google goes and indexes a website, they run all kinds of checks on that site. Is it fast? Is it
Hmm.
secure? Does it have the keywords and the content that the person said it does, right? All of
Hmm.
those things. Is it accessible? And so I think those are the pieces that, are becoming more and more important. I'll just give you kind of the best example I have,
Hmm.
which is, Google made a major change. They saw that mobile phones were starting to really become popular and usage, right? It went
Yeah.
from 5% of searches all the way up to now it's like 75% are on mobile devices. And so Google had a ranking change where they basically said if your website couldn't load properly on a
Hmm.
mobile device, then you would get crushed in the rankings. And pretty much overnight, websites that were really high ranking websites went down to zero, and all of a sudden, sites that were well optimized for mobile all of a sudden started ranking. And it completely turned around the internet, in a very short amount of time. And so I think that's just your best example of how much Google can change things and say, hey, your site better be mobile friendly or else. And so that's where I know you want to know about kind of future ranking algorithms. What's the
Hmm.
next mobile one that's coming down the road, right?
Yeah. That's really helpful. What I'm hearing here, obviously, is that yes, Google are fairly strict, but they're doing that because they want to improve the quality of the results that they have, and they want to ensure that when people land on that page, it is relevant, because that's, I guess, to Google is, if people are getting poor results, then people are going to stop using Google over time, and their main source of business is ad revenue, etc. So actually, what's happening here is Google are ensuring that there is better quality content that people are landing on it. That people are landing on. How can we possibly know what all of the variables are? Because you've shared kind of accessibility, in over the course of this conversation, fast website, etc. How can we possibly know what all these variables are, and do they change regularly?
That's a great question. That's an awesome question. They do. They change over time. They evolve.
Hmm.
And the hardest part, and this is the one that nobody knows except the engineer who's on the back end of Google, but they can change the weighting of those, right?
Hmm.
So when they changed the mobile one, they said this is 60% weighting, right? Meaning it's extremely important. And
Yeah.
so sites were getting just killed instantly. A
Hmm.
lot of ones, there's small weighting effects, maybe a 5% lift or a 5% penalty. And so that's the hardest part. Now there are sites out there like SEO Moz that they spend nothing but trying to understand what those ranking changes are. And this is where I think it probably gets a little bit too minutia for the average person. It's too granular.
Hmm.
But I will say this: we're seeing clear weighting increases to certain things like accessibility, like security. If you didn't have an HTTPS,
Hmm.
sites were getting killed. That was another variable, right? So
Yeah.
security, we're seeing an increase in stuff around compliance,
Hmm.
especially if you're in HIPAA, GDPR, CCPA, all of these things. And so Google can scan your site and they can see if you're handling data the right way. They can see if you're secure. They can
Yeah.
see if your plugins are updated, which is a security thing. So those weightings we're seeing continue to increase and evolve over time.
So what I'm hearing here, buddy, is that yes, we can try and keep up to date with SEO if we possibly can, following tools like, following websites like SEO Moz, etc. But that's potentially too much. I think what you're saying here is do the basics really well, because Google wants you to provide a good quality, accessible, secure, compliant website, so that when people click on their results, they're going to have a good experience and they're going to continue to use Google. So would it be fair in saying that do the basics well and right that we are aware of, and and not worry too much about all of the extra kind of minute detail and potential algorithm changes and new names for each new algorithm?
I think that's expertly put. Yeah, that's
Thank you.
exactly what people want to do.
Expertly put. I'll take expert. I don't know anything about the algorithms. I just know they have really random names like penguin and all sorts of stuff like
They
that.
do. They have fun with that for sure.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm really worried about, and I think a lot of business owners are, to be honest, is ChatGPT and other AI tools. Is that going to ruin search engines?
People are worried, is it going to get blacklisted, kind of a thing. I go back to the core that we've been talking about. Right now, AI content generally ranks really well. It's clean, it's understandable, it's missing, the human errors like typos and grammar and other things. Like it's clean and it's usually well researched, right? It's using the power of the internet. So I think ChatGPT content, AI content is going to continue to increase because it provides a good user experience, and that's what Google cares about. Now, Google did already come out and they said that, sites that are creating just mountains and mountains of AI content that's irrelevant, they are going to suppress that. They're going to, not allow sites just create, unlimited mounts that's irrelevant to the topic. They've also said that they're going to create a new fact checking scan where they'll scan when they scan sites, they'll see does the site have too many errors on it, right? Because ChatGPT likes to create uh, answers out of thin air sometimes. Then they will suppress that content. Um, and so, I think that they will have controls around it. They will have factors that you can be boosted or penalized. But for the most part, the content is good. The user experience is good with ChatGPT content. And so I think that it's going to continue to rank, and it will get boosts that regular human content may not.
Yeah. I think as well, we're saying here that if it is good, relevant content, again, that's going to give the end user the experience. So the end user has the search intent. They land on a website or a page that is relevant, has good, clear, concise information. They're happy, Google are happy, etc. And they don't necessarily care. Because I was worried that perhaps the ChatGPT or AI generated content might dilute search engine results and people's experiences, or make SEO an even bigger mountain to climb. I guess, would it be fair to say that people should certainly be using AI if and when they need to, but with the knowledge that they have, especially when you pointed out that fact?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you think about books, right?
Mhm.
Like books are kind of what Google is. Google is looking for books and indexing books. Um, you know, Paying for an editor, somebody who can do some fact checking, will clean up all the grammar and all the things that you have. If that book is better written,
Mhm.
and it's going to be more popular, it's going to make it to the top of the bestsellers list, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, like, same thing, right? We're going back to that. Google cares about user experience, and in
Mhm.
the ways that they can measure that, they will. And so far we're seeing that chat gpt content, assuming it's accurate, tends to do better than the average, human written item.
Well, that sucks. At least for me,
But
when
it's like
I'm
it's like editing, right? It's like
creating.
chat gpt is an editor, right?
Yes, indeed. That's a really good point, and that's something that I do very often. I will write a first draft. Well, actually, I'll go to ChatGPT to help me with an outline. I'll then write a first draft, roughly of my own, with my own knowledge, the key points that I want to make. I'll then feed that back through ChatGPT, that can then expand upon that, and, like you said, edit that, and that actually produces a far better article than I could ever. And it has felt a little bit like cheating in the past, but you are right. The end result is highly valuable to the end user. So thanks so much for diving into all of that with us and just helping us understand that, get the basics right, and give the content to the user that they're expecting, and Google will reward you for that. That's really helpful, I think, for everybody, just to say, hey, these are the basics of SEO. Of course, AI and SEO are changing all the time. How are Convesio keeping on top of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our mission and focus is really around helping sites be available, scalable, secure, right? So we mostly have commerce-based sites, and so their business matters, and they need to be online, they need to be fast, they need to be available. And so it's interesting to see how parallel we've come to SEO, just by having, our container technology streamlines and optimizes sites, makes them up more. They don't need to be taken down for upgrades. It makes them super fast compared to, a typical VPS host. So sites are fast. That right there is a better user experience. They're more secure because you don't have a bunch of sites crammed onto one hard drive, or if a server goes down, that doesn't affect sites on with us. So just things like that. We've actually found ourselves to be pretty darn good at helping sites be instantly better at SEO without having to change a single piece of code or write a single piece of content, right? So we kind of help fix one part of the whole, just by being with us. But then we've also partnered up with industry experts around accessibility, around maintenance, around ensuring that these are things that help the user. They help the site. It's really it's one of those kind of unique win-win-wins, right? Google sees it and likes it better, the user sees it and likes it better, and the website owner gets more traffic and sales. Everybody wins. It's
And I've
pretty
had
cool.
the privilege of interviewing some of the partners as well. So, folks, we'll make sure we include some links in there for you to find out more about those extra services, such as maintenance and accessibility. So, I think what we're saying here, buddy, is fast website, secure website. We want to ensure it is well maintained, ensure it is compliant. And as we lock in those variables, it's going to help our SEO rankings.
And I think too, I mean, we've kind of hinted around it as well, but there's a multiplier effect that happens. And so, you know, Google is going to give you some users, and they're going to check to see what that experience is. If those users are converting and they're staying and they're having a good experience, you're going to get more sales, and Google's going to give you even more users, right? And so, and then you're going to take those and give them a good experience, and then you're going to get more users. So it's kind of a unique upward spiral of greatness, right? Where, like I said, if everyone's winning, Google will continue to recommend and refer you like a good friend would, right? Because they know that you're providing a good experience and people are converting with you and checking out with you.
I like how you've put that. That's very much like a typical referral relationship there as well, isn't it? So Google's getting the feedback from the people that it recommended. Yep, this is good. They stayed on the website long. There are low bounce rates. There's all of those things that you mentioned earlier. Let's continue to recommend people to check out this content because clearly this company, this website, this person is doing their due diligence and providing some quality information. Now, there's an awful lot of new regulations. How are you guys keeping on top of that?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, we found that, just the way that we've built websites, like I said, we put every website in its own container,
Mhm.
um, with dedicated resources. It's isolated. All of the operating system, all of the other stuff is removed. It
Yeah.
makes that site so that we can replicate it. We can make that site fast, available, all of the things that I mentioned, and that actually works really well from a like HIPAA performance perspective as well. So with HIPAA compliance, that's kind of a newer product of ours. Having the site already be secure and isolated was just a natural fit there. My background coming from Microsoft and data, I have a lot of experience with things like GDPR and CCPA, and so protecting that data, you know, rules around firing pixels and stuff like that, are all things that Google can measure, and
Mhm.
they help, Google to understand, are you, treating that customer the right way, so I think, obviously it's a lot of reading, a lot of legal stuff, and a lot of these laws are super vague on purpose.
Mm.
I think the government says, websites need to be taking reasonable measures, to help ensure security and compliance. And so I think that like I said, out of the box, our software and hardware work together to kind of provide that. And then the next piece is kind of being able to document, so that website owners have a path to be able to share, like, hey, we're providing these things for our users. Google can see that. Any legal entity could eventually see that. So I think that's a big part of like just websites, your ranking, and taking care of the user ultimately are all intertwined.
Absolutely. Now, let's switch gears slightly and just talk about WordPress. Why has Convesio focused on WordPress as its primary CMS of choice?
It's around, it's WordPress is open source. It's insanely popular. It is the most capable CMS available, right? Like it can just do everything. Sometimes that has risks, that you get bad plugins, or code hacks or things like that. But what it does is it gives you the power to be able to build really extensive and beautiful experiences for users. WordPress, out of the box, is really SEO friendly because it allows you to customize so much.
Mhm.
Like a lot of what I see, a lot of people are moving from, like they start with like a WYSIWYG editor, right? Where
Yeah.
they can just drag and drop, they can build a pretty website quickly, from something like a Squarespace, Wix, whatever. And those are great for for a site. But when you have a business critical site, often the flexibility isn't there. The
Mhm.
options around SEO and user experience aren't there. You're very limited to whatever widgets they build and give you. That's it. With
Yeah.
WordPress, you can build on top of, you can customize, you can do anything, right? So, WordPress truly is just a beautiful platform. That's why I think 67% or something of the web actually uses WordPress to power their websites. And so I think for us, we've gone all in. We do support a lot of other PHP platforms like Laravel, Bedrock, and we'll continue to expand. But
Mhm.
WordPress is truly where it's at.
Absolutely. And it has been for a very long time. That 67%, I think, is a number that is always going up. In my own experience as well, we've often considered WordPress as a framework, not just as a CMS, because not only can we put together, say, a 5 page brochure website, we can also do a really complicated e-commerce website. But heck, we've even used it as a fully fledged CRM for back office solutions for large clients who can use all of the back end UI, etc., post types, all of that good stuff to create some really complicated applications that will drive a business forward. So it is a phenomenal product and something that will be close to my heart for a very long time, I'm sure as well. Is Convesio primarily therefore focused on SEO as a host and as an agency?
We're not an agency, we're a host, as you said, and it's interesting, like I said, how parallel we've come. I mean, my background in SEO, I've been able to kind of see and align. So when we make business and product decisions, how can we tweak this in such a way that it also has a benefit to SEO, right? I think
Yeah.
that's the key. And so like when you're thinking about, SEO, most of the time just building a better product for users will help your SEO, right? And
Yeah.
so it's kind of the same thing as we've built this hosting platform. We built it, as I said, for growing businesses, commerce businesses, whether they're a membership site or a news publication or an e-commerce store, on WordPress. We help them, you know, have a very fast, very effective experience for their users. And that's good SEO.
So, mate, as we coming into land, I'm hearing a lot of good stuff here. I'm hearing that we need to produce good content, do our due diligence as a business, making sure that our site is relevant, it's secure, it's well maintained, that we are complying with whatever the relevant compliances that we need are out there, and that you folks in Convesio are dedicated to doing the same for Convesio.com, but also in helping clients deliver on that so that they can produce great quality content for the people who are visiting their sites. And equally, you're trying to produce that great quality experience as well for your own clients. Do you have any recommendations of tools that would help with SEO?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the good thing is while Google will never give you their exact algorithm,
Rude.
they provide a ton of free tools that
Yeah.
are really helpful in doing your own diagnostics. And
Uh-huh.
there are others out there as well. Like Google Search Console is free. You set it up on your site. Obviously, Google Analytics, or GA4 now they call it. Those are free. Everyone should use them. I don't see why you wouldn't.
Uh-huh.
I really like GT Metrics. There is a Google Page Speed Insights tool, which is good, but it does a worst case scenario where it's using like the slowest mobile phone experience possible. So I think that can get a little bit atypical, and I think people will follow that tool a little bit too much. GT Metrics allows you to set the experience. I think it gives a richer amount of feedback,
Yeah.
and it's generally free to use. I really, if you're in WordPress, I really like Yoast and Accessibility Checker. They are
Uh-huh.
tools that will audit, different pieces of your site to ensure that you have the basics like tags and buttons and tooltips and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's also a really cool free web accessibility evaluation tool, Wave, from WebIAM, that we can share with you. So I think the tools are out there that will show you and help walk you through kind of the things that need to be changed. And if you're not super technical, I think partnering with whoever your website builder is, or whoever your SEO person is, it's a great way to kind of go through and say like, hey, these tools are showing these gaps.
Yeah.
What can we do to kind of improve and streamline. And then I think the other thing you can do too is you can often get people to do audits on your site where they'll user experience audits, just what they see, what their impressions are, all of those things. So I think there's a wealth of great free tools. Some of them have premium versions which give you a few extra bells and whistles if you want. But I think there's no reason why we can't have a great experience for our users. That's what Google wants. That's what the users want. And ultimately we want to win their business and win their hearts. And that's the way to do it.
I think if I could sum up this entire conversation, really, mate, is SEO is not necessarily about trying to check off a whole load of boxes. Yes, there are some boxes to check. It's actually predominantly about providing quality and providing what people need and expect. And that is something that we should all be doing in business. A business will grow off the back of good quality service, good quality product, etc. And that's exactly what we're looking to provide. So, whilst I've probably approached this initial conversation of, hey, how do we game SEO? It's not a game. What we're saying here, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is let's be really good at what we do, just like Convesio are doing on a day-to-day basis. And from that quality, obviously what will happen is that kind of that recommendation, that picture that you gave us earlier on of people will recommend you if you provide a good quality service, etc. And that's really the kind of relationship that we could probably have with SEO as opposed to my original mentality before this conversation of how do we game the system? What are the things I need to do on my website? What code do I need to put on there to make it all magically work? So thank you for giving us a completely different view on SEO that I don't think anyone's ever given me ever. That's pretty awesome.
Love it. No, I think you nailed it. You said better than what I could. So that's why you're you, Lee. You're the best.
I have to say it back, mate, because I'll forget it otherwise. And to be honest, I get worried that I've not understood it. So I like to kind of regurgitate what people say to me just to make sure that I'm on the right page and I'm not kind of off somewhere. So, buddy, as we come into land, if somebody wants to have a conversation with Convesio to find out how you folks can help, what's the best way for them to connect with you? And then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, so I think we'll put a couple links in. I mean, we're always happy to chat and help sites understand. I mean, like I said, we're kind of built for business critical sites.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we're not $10 hosting like you can find at a GoDaddy or something like that. But if your site matters for your growth and success, then we'd love to talk to you. No obligations. So we'll put a link in for that. We also offer some really cool website audit tools free, where we can run some scans on your sites, kind of to show you what gaps may exist. And that way you have the information to do what you need. Of course, if you ever need recommendations, we have partners and vendors that we can recommend that we know do a great job with helping to resolve some of these things.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, folks. Thank you for your time in watching. Please let us know in the comments if you're on YouTube what your biggest takeaway from this episode is. And also check the description for all of the links, not only to the tools that were mentioned, but also to ways that you can connect with Convesio and get some of that free initial help and advice on your mission critical website that you care about, again, with no obligation. Daryl, thank you so much for your time. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you real soon.
Thanks, Lee.
Cheerio.